So nothing real formal today, but when Kathy and I were talking yesterday, the question came up, it's like, what am I teaching tomorrow? I don't know. So we talked about the fact that I think a lot of us in a perfect world would learn how to transition this into an actual business, right? To where it's not just kind of the sales job where we're winging it and doing everything like that. Well, part of that ultimately is financial intelligence, right? So you really know, are you making a profit or not? What's driving your profit, and understanding your expenses versus income and net, and then other ways to generate other income, right? And these ways to continue to scale your business up. So years ago, 20 plus years ago, there was a book that's on my shelf back there called the MREA, the Millionaire Real Estate Agent, that was written. And what it did was they interviewed several, I don't know how many, but 40 or 50 agents that were in the top 100 in the country, no matter what brokers they worked for. And the interesting thing is they looked at that as they discovered that they all had found almost a similar path after a bunch of trial and error to make a net, at least $1 million a year net income. And so they realized there's lots of ways to make 50,000, 100,000, but to ultimately net 7 figures, it's pretty narrow by the time you figure it out to get the scale right. So this chart of accounts is a blend of those and kind of categorized down based on their operating expenses, their revenue streams, their things like that, and the percentages that correlate with it. So as you start to get more and more aware, you can really compare apples to apples. Like, am I spending about the same as somebody that's at that level? Am I overspending? Am I underspending? And at least what it does is it's going to drive better conversations, right? When you're going through coaching or anything like that, or even with your accountant or bookkeeper along that line. Now, as solo agents, a lot of the chart of accounts you don't necessarily need to know as in depth. They can be a little bit overwhelming at first, but there is a version of this, just so you know, if you use QuickBooks, maybe even something like Wave nowadays or whatever, some of the free ones, that is importable into that, so it can be used inside of like QuickBooks if you have a bookkeeper or anybody preparing your taxes. But the idea is we want to understand that you can use this as a beginning agent. You just may not track as much. The idea is start getting in the habits of tracking this stuff. So really, as a beginning agent, the main things you're going to focus on is income. Obviously, what's my gross coming in the top? Cost of sale. Do you guys remember from any of our other stuff what cost of sale is versus expenses? Tricky.
I suppose just like the nitty-gritty breakdown of like you sent mailers, you spent your time at this house with them, the hours on each client individually, like whatever promotional things, like the binders that you give them, whatever, like that's more.
That's all very good, but that's all going to go under the expense category. So cost of sale is the terminology as it's used here is anything that's tied directly to the commission itself on that transaction. So not like operating expenses, but more like the split you pay the broker, for example, or if you're paying Veterans United a referral fee, or if you have the point where you've got a buyer's agent and you're paying the buyer's agent part of the commission. Does that make sense? Okay. So anything that comes out of the commission is a cost of sale. Everything else that's just an ongoing or one-off type of cost that you have is going to be under the expense category, like your cell phone, rent, mailers like you talked about, right? That's all going to go underneath expenses. And then ultimately we're left with, at the end, hopefully some profit, right? That's the goal, is profit. We don't do this just for, giggles, right? We want to make some money out of it. So when we look at the overall chart, it gets pretty intricate, but this is where you're going to start, okay? And I'll make sure you have this as a download. And today we'll go ahead and get it into the Lifestyle Agent group so you can have access to it. But really just tracking your income. So again, differentiating between listing and sales income, right? Did I make money off this listing? How much? And that's gross, by the way. So that's before splits, right? So that's if you see when EXP sends out your CDA, your Commission Disbursement Authorization, it has the gross number on there. So the percentage you charge the client, and then if you charge a transaction fee or anything like that, okay, that's all part of that listing income and sales income. Referral income is inbound, right? Did I receive any money from referrals that I sent somewhere else? Like we just sent a referral to Melanie Weaver in Kansas City. She closed a buyer for us. We got $4 or $5 grand back in a referral fee, right? So that would go there in referral income. And then leasing income, are you doing any leasing? Okay, on the residential side. We don't talk about it a lot, but in a lot of markets, that's a pretty big deal. Like I know agents in my Miami office, they eat off of doing rentals because they get paid half a month's rent. A lot of people rent down there and they lease like crazy. Yes.
My question in that with the, is sort of the, wisdom, I guess, of having rental properties when the goal is to get people buying stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So is that just because you can leverage the fact that you can find the best deals and you have this industry knowledge, so you can get a good deal on a rental house and then make that monthly income? Because don't we wanna get everybody buying a house?
Well, you're gonna make, depends on your market, honestly, right? So there's a guy with an EXP who does about 50 rentals a month. He's got a systematized, he's making 100 grand a month on rentals, right? So he's doing pretty good. He's figured out his systems, he's figured out how to attract it. There are more people that can rent than can buy
So it's more
in
consistent
certain markets,
income.
and it can be consistent, right? Because he'll get that $400, $500, $600 per property every month, right? And it just racks up. Now, in our market, it's not really promoted heavily. There are a few sometimes on the multiple listing service, not very many. I wish there were more. I don't put my rental property I own on there. Maybe I should, and say, hey, you bring me a good quality tenant, I'll give you half a month's rent. Because that's what I would pay a property manager, if not more,
Right.
to do that, right? So, but it is something you can do. This is not, in our case, within our organization, we aren't doing property management.
Right.
This is just really if you placed a tenant and you got paid for placing that tenant on the residential side.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so if that's there, you may have some of that. I don't know that I'd focus on it because there's not a big demand on that right here, right now, in that regard. We may see it grow more though. The next piece it breaks down is, are you doing any commercial listing or sales? So you can again kind of get a bigger picture of where's most of my money coming from, right? And break that all down, and you're gonna get, and then other real estate income. So right now, I can't even think what other real estate income would be unless maybe you do some consulting and you charge like a consulting fee. I did have a girl I used to coach down in Chattanooga area. She charged builders a consulting fee. Then they may or may not hire her, but she would go in and she'd charge them X to help them talk about the most popular floor plans right now, the most popular color schemes, the this, that, and the others, right? And kind of walk them through some of that. And then if they ended up hiring her, she credited that fee toward her listing, her master listing agreement fees.
Okay.
But I can't really right now, other than what you're gonna have from listing, sales, referral, and leasing income,
So
what you're
maybe
gonna
if you
end up
did-
with here.
Oh, okay, yeah. Maybe if you did transaction coordinator stuff or something.
Yeah, you could put something like that in there, right? Or if you're, again, maybe if you're charging some type of administrative fee for other people, things along that line, I think you could add that category there and just push this down. I've got a little more refinement to do on this, like not all the categories auto-populate just yet, but I'm almost done with it to where everything will automatically add up for you as you enter anything along there. But this is cost of sales to be more clear about what it is, okay? So your cost of sales, like I said, is anything that's going out directly from that commission, related to that commission is your cost of sales. So your commission's to the office. What are you paying your broker? If you happen to be, for other people at different companies that have a royalty fee they pay, like Coldwell Banker, Keller Williams, stuff like that, they're gonna pay an additional fee on top of their split to the broker out to international, okay? Anywhere usually from 5 to 8%. On top of their split. So, and then a listing cost of sale, buyer cost of sale, and other. So listing cost of sale would be if you have, generally speaking, maybe you're doing a co-agent, right? You're doing a 50-50, you could put that on there.
Okay.
You're paying a listing specialist to go out and do the listings on your behalf as a team, you put that there. You've got a buyer's agent or a showing agent, you could put that there. I think nowadays what I would do is probably add another line here to differentiate underneath this. I would probably add a subcategory, not that you need to know this now where you're at in your business, but thinking ahead is you're gonna have at some point maybe a lead buyer's agent, but to help them leverage, you'll have showing agents, right? Because ultimately that'll control your costs better, bless you, it'll control your costs better because a showing agent generally is either gonna be like a flat fee or a smaller percentage of the deal.
So like me.
Yeah, like you, like
Rachel,
you've got a negotiation with her, right, and you get certain, I don't know if you're getting percentage or dollar amount or how it's
Percentage.
set up.
Yeah.
So you get a percentage, because you're mainly doing some of the showings, some of the conversion, but you're not necessarily handling everything.
Right.
If you are, then there's room for you guys to talk about what that looks like going forward. But you can split that out so that you can control that cost of sale and leverage that out. You may not even have, like she's doing with you, you may not even really start out with a true 100% buyer's agent. It's easier, I think, to leverage a showing agent, because we've got a lot of agents that are newer, getting started, that get the chance to kind of earn while they learn type of deal. And you can go out and negotiate it, not necessarily say, hey, I'm gonna pay you 40% or 50%. Go out and do this for a smaller percent, 5 or 10 or whatever, and grow into this role. Let's see how it goes, right? It's a good way to
Well,
kind of
and
date.
that's kind of how we started, and she's upped that. So I'm like, yeah, I got a raise.
Hey, good. Well, you've earned the right,
Yeah.
right? And this is a great way to kind of have that dating period
Mhm.
and see if you're a good culturally fit, if the person's got good work ethic, are they converting, are they basically getting you a return, right? So the thing when you start looking through that is this is your cost of sales and anything other. So maybe again, some other referral fees paid out, that's not really on here, it should be. That could be like other commissions paid out. If you're paying out referral fees, you got a lead from an agent in St. Louis and you're paying them 30%, or you got Veterans United. I know a lot of people do that here in our group or whatever, Op City, something along that line. So that'll be your total commissions paid out, and that'll add up to your other cost of sales, and get that here and create what's called a gross profit, okay? A gross profit. That's what's gonna be reflected on the 1099 you get from EXP, because they've already taken out those splits, because they manage the split, right? Meaning when you pay a listing agent, you're not paying the listing agent,
Right, it's kind
right? You're running it through the CDA, you're running it through SkySlope, and they're saying, oh, they're paying you your portion, and they're paying Corinthia her portion,
Right.
right?
So when you do that, then, or when you have, I guess not that so much. So the only portion that affects my taxes is that portion that goes in my bank account. But does the cost that we pay, like our percentage that goes to EXP, or the percentage that goes to, say, a referral source of some kind, do either of those are, because those are taken off the top, so those aren't my expenses, right? I
Right.
can't claim those as expenses.
Right,
Wouldn't
right.
that be great?
That'd
be
so,
so great.
so would it though? So here's the challenge with that is that
Yeah.
means you would have to manage it,
Well, and
right?
I'd have to claim more income and, yeah.
Right. So it's really streamlines your life, because you're
Yeah.
not seeing that money to begin with, and you're not having to manage that piece of it.
Yeah,
So it's a lot easier to have it handled at the top level. Plus from a licensing standpoint, without you being the designated broker, you cannot pay those people,
right, okay.
right? So it has to come from the top anyway.
Yeah,
So they handle that influx, because the money technically is all theirs when you sell a house and you get commission.
right, okay. that makes
Technically, it's
sense.
broker's money,
Yeah,
right? And then they're paying,
so it's not even
Team.
technically my money to begin with.
not yet,
Yeah,
not
okay.
until it filters through all this.
Right,
And then you get your 1099. But what some people in the past that I've worked with, that's all they understand. If they even understand what their 1099 is, they may not even know really, as they're going through the year, what's their 1099, how are they doing, what's their top level revenue even coming in.
right,
And very few know this other piece. Very few understand this. But this is important, and it can be really especially important if you're having a dialogue with anybody that's not here, because they don't understand maybe that they paid 50 grand to be a Century 21, for example. They
right,
may not know that they may not understand they're paying royalties above and beyond, right? They may not really understand all that. But for us, it's good to understand clearly, especially these two, right? We know ours are fixed right here with EXP as we cap. But our listing cost of sale and buyer cost of sale is really important to start to understand as you start building a little bit of a team. Because if you aren't careful, you can very rapidly put yourself into the red.
right, cause
Okay.
you don't even know where your money's going.
You don't know where it's going, you don't really understand, you're kind of wondering like, why is my 1099 so low? I did like 10 million, where's all my money, right? Well, if it's 10 million and your 1099 is a lot lower than you thought, it's because it's been lost up here somewhere, right?
Let's get 10 million.
So hit 10 million.
Let's do it.
Yes, it's just like, 40 deals. You got 40 deals. Get it. But seriously, that really is the big thing. I coached an agent, man, 20 years ago. And she was doing about 17 million a year, bringing in about $500,000 in top level revenue, but her income at the end of the year was only $67,000. $500,000 in revenue, $67,000 after everything's said and done. And a lot of it was spent here. She was overpaying people, not understanding her own value proposition. She had them on way too high of a split for the value she gave. And then the rest was lost in expenses that she wasn't really tracking, like in advertising, and we'll talk about that, like what to expect. But in advertising that was spent, she didn't know really where her business came from, and just threw money at all kinds of slick marketing, right? It was just going out the door. But it fed her ego because she kept getting awards in the industry, because back then that was a ton. 17 million, the average sales price is a little over 100 grand.
Right.
So she's doing 150 deals a year. You know, in today's market, that would be, I don't know what that would be, like 40
Crazy
million.
amounts of-
It'd be like
yeah,
40
that's
million in
crazy.
volume, right? So a big producer who was barely taking anything home, and she and I also got into it in parted ways, because I said, girl, I don't know why you don't just fire everybody and go sell 3 million if that's all you need to make. Like,
Right.
get rid of the headache, get rid of the overhead, just sell your
stress,
3 million, make your 67 grand a year and call it good. The stress, like she had 8 people on her payroll that she was responsible for their lives. And I'm like, that's
Right.
just not why. If that's what you're gonna take home, it doesn't make sense. Had she really understood this better and then tracked the bottom, it would have been a game changer. But some people don't like their ego being called out either, right? Because that's really honestly what it was about, was the plaques, you know, and the recognition and those things like that.
Well, I mean, you feel good and it motivates some people to have that
Yeah.
rather than the bottom line. And I personally don't want the stress.
Mm-hmm.
If it was, I will take less stress and no plaque.
There were plenty of years where Kathy or I, whatever, were invited to a lot of these different award banquets when we were really heavy in our day-to-day production, and I never went. And I remember a broker I worked for at the time said, you need to show up and represent the company. I said, no, I don't. With all due respect, I mean, I do this business for me. You're my vehicle. You hold my license, but I'm not into awards. I'm not into getting dressed up and kissing ass all day. Like, I care about what I'm netting at the end of the day. It's my business, right?
Right.
So it's one of those things that there's probably a good balance between the two, like having fun, enjoying the success, getting the rewards, meeting other people, networking, and doing all that within our industry. I do think that's important. But at the time, I was also 30, and I was really arrogant and didn't care, right? I didn't have the brain space for it. But that's going to give you your gross profit, meaning what's your business's gross profit after kind of these outgoing just cost of sales. And then we get into expenses. So you're not going to worry about this right now, some of these categories as individual agents. You will if you have, if you're paying TC work, right? If you're having anything like there and it's one-off, you'll keep track of, oh, I paid a transaction coordinator, or I paid somebody to design some logos or some things like that. You can put it here, or you can put it in advertising, but every single line item. So just so you know, as you're looking at cost of sales and expenses, kind of a rule of thumb is that roughly, not quite a third, but about a third of your money goes out the door in splits, 29%, okay? As you get bigger and bigger, it's gonna be lower now, right? Unless, well, I say that. Agents that do a lot of referral business from companies like Veterans or Op City, it's going to be higher than what we pay at EXP, right? Because a large percentage of their income is driven from these referral fees. So they may be paying 30, 40, 50% out to Op City or Dave Ramsey or whoever, and that's going to change that. So I'm going to keep that there for now. So about 30% goes out the door, off the top, okay?
Right.
If you're way higher than that, we need to start really looking at your business model and see why. Why am I so skewed heavy on what's going out the door? And then on your total expenses, same thing, about 30%, okay? Two of the big categories are gonna be when you start hiring people, your admin, salaries, all of that. That's gonna be about 12%. And then marketing is the other piece, it's about 10%, okay? So those are the key ones. But you can see as you start tracking all this salaries, if you're spending, kind of a good way to think about it, if your salaries are about 12% total, it's a good kind of measurement too of saying, well, if I'm making $100,000, what should I be spending on help?
Right.
10 to 12 grand, If you're spending more than that, you're out of whack. If you're not spending anything, it might be about time to start thinking about getting some leverage so you can go to the next level. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Same thing, it can go the other way. If you're spending way heavy on it, like, why am I spending so much? You know, if I'm paying somebody 30 grand a year to work for me and I'm only making 100, are they not providing the return, right? Or am I just taking off and
They
playing
should
hooky?
bump you past that 100, like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In theory, I mean, you look at the percentage, right? So if that percentage equates to 12%, that means if you bring somebody on, they should bump you up at least five times where you're at in a lot of ways, or at least double your production, but
Right.
5 times their expense. So if you're paying them 30 grand or 40 grand, they should allow you to generate an extra 120 to 150 grand because they freed up that time where you go do dollar productive activities. Okay, which means, again, let's kind of think about it. If you have somebody that's full-time admin and they're doing all of your TC work, that's roughly 15 hours per deal. If you had somebody do all of your marketing and you're doing 10 hours a week, that's 40 hours a month. So here, if you're doing where you start really leveraging is around 2 to 3 deals a month. So that equals to 2 to 3, let's say 2 times 15, that equals 30 hours. If you have somebody taking your marketing, that's another 40 hours. That's 70 hours of your time freed back up,
Yeah.
right? If that's focused on your five kind of activities that we talk about that a real estate agent needs to do, of lead gen, right? Lead gen, lead follow-up, appointments, negotiating, and then role play. If you had 70 more hours of doing this, what would likely happen to your number of transactions? It's going to go way up, right? So even if it's just doubling and you're doing you add 3 deals a month at 7,500 per deal, that's 22.5 extra every month. 22.5 extra. So that TC that you paid on 3 deals may cost you $600 or $700, maybe $800. And then if you've got somebody doing 40 hours a month, that you can do bonus or base, whatever. But whether you use a VA or not, let's just say another $1,000 a month for 25 hours a week. You're at $1,800 in expense to drive an extra $22,000 a month in income. That's huge, right? That is more than a 10-to-1 return on dollar, right? So how wisely are you using that? But that's where you need to kind of pay attention. If you're spending it and you're not getting at least a 5-to-1, if you're not turning that into at least, let's say, 10,000 extra a month, at least 1 extra or 1.5 extra deals a month, then there's a concern there. So are they not doing their activities to really free you up? Are you having to go back and micromanage and kind of hold their hand all the time because they're not the right fit?
Right.
Or are you just taking advantage of the downtime and not
No,
pouring
right.
it back into growth?
Right.
Makes
Well,
sense?
and so when I first started doing these couple deals for Rachel, the first couple, I wanted to do the paperwork. Like I wanted to do it all the way through because I needed to experience that because I want to at least be able to have an educated conversation with people when necessary. Well, then I got these one weekend I got 2 deals in one weekend, and that Monday I had a terrible migraine, and she's like, do you want me to send these 2 over to the TC? I said, yes, absolutely. And ever since then, I'm like, heck yes.
Yeah.
Heck yes, because the amount of time spending on paperwork was unreal. Like, it was just, even just having to think about the timeline that she manages took so much stress off of me.
Yeah, just your dates, right? Making sure all your deadlines are met. And then missing the initials and just the cleanup and the compliance and all that stuff.
Cleanup.
The brain space, even if you're super efficient at it, like I feel pretty efficient at that stuff.
Yeah.
That I could hop into SkySlope and do it in a matter of 5 or 10 minutes, get it sent off to the buyer. But then, am I really following up with the buyer? Am I making sure it's then coming back signed? Am I then forwarding it to who I need to forward it to? Is it then getting the title? And then all these things it just takes up brain space, right?
Yeah.
Whereas if I know it's turned off over here, even though the action only may have taken 15 minutes for me, it takes up a lot more of that my brain space and productivity. So either way, like one of our icon agents we've got that's in our group has never written a contract once.
Wow.
4 years in the business, she's never written a single contract.
And she's icon.
Mm-hmm.
See, and the way.
She knows the contract.
Yes.
She understands it because you need to, protect yourself.
Well, and that's
she's
what I
never
was
written
looking
one
for.
once.
And with the one agent, so we write buyer's paperwork. We write a lot more paperwork than, like, say, Kathy does.
Oh.
I do for the other one, but I've also gotten real efficient at that. So, like, if it's late at night, if it's whatever time that she's not there, I can still pop that off.
Yeah. 1 second. Hey, it's should be unlocked. Should be good to go, ma'am. Thank you for popping by. Key should be in the door handle. Yeah. So again, it's some of us have that control factor that's hard to let go for a little bit. It's like, I need to make sure and see where it's at. And my wife struggles with that a little bit, right? She wants to make sure everything's really written the way it's done, sent out right, no confusion. But the efficiency factor just makes it so much easier. I mean, not the efficiency, but freeing up the brain space, freeing up the time to go out and pick up one more deal.
Well, and I think if we're not, we almost get like paranoid. I think I've seen different people get like kind of like, I have to get them to sign this buyer's contract quickly or this listing contract quickly so that I don't lose them.
Yeah, yep. The new pigtails in? Nice, man. Sorry you had to come back and do that. We're all good?
Yeah, just that plastic's brittle, it cracked, I guess it just vibrated.
Yeah.
Where it's at, you're right next to your exhaust.
I got really good at putting it back in, so.
Yeah, it's a brand new one.
Thanks, sir, appreciate you.
But I think if the way that Kathy does it, she's in such a relationship with them already that if the buyer's paperwork doesn't get completed in the next 15 minutes, she's not worried about losing them as a client.
Yeah.
And that's a different level of stress for me also.
Yes. Yeah, and so as your business grows and evolves, that's something to get into way out. And where I've had a conversation with one of our agents over in Joplin is he writes a lot of paper, and maybe half of it really gets accepted and goes through. He writes a lot. And so, like with our transaction coordination company that we have with Kim and my support staff is right now her hours are business hours, and even reduced on certain days or most days a lot of times because we're not at that level of needing 2 or 3 people, right? He needed more on-demand, reactive stuff, and again, Kathy's kind of there too. Is like to get it out of her head, so she leverages Kim and you, right? Yeah. It's like boom, boom, so she can get out of her head. But that's when you sometimes think, do I need a dedicated VA just to myself? Right. Do I need to hire an agent and train them to do this with me and pay them part of the deal? What does that look like? And you'll start to analyze your business better. But controlling those costs, I mean, a lot of agents are paying $400 or $500 on TC work right now, and that's just
even way more than that.
It's not. It doesn't make sense to spend a lot of that just on the TC side, right? Or on even on the marketing side. It's become such a. I mean, I like to give local people jobs, but it's become a global economy, right? And there are a lot of really talented people out there that are hungry for work, and you can control your costs better than paying somebody. And luckily, we live in a market that's an affordable market in most cases anyway for finding people.
Yeah.
But if I was in a high area market, like we were back in New York or Florida, I would almost definitely use somebody outside of those states because I wouldn't want to pay them what they want to get paid to do jobs that I can get for half. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? So it's getting controlling that. Not that I'm just trying to be mean to people there, but it's like, hey, I can get this same quality work. I can hire somebody in Arkansas that's super smart and pay them $25 a year instead of you for $50.
Right.
You know,
that's business.
It's business, and everything is. I mean, our whole company is cloud-based, right? So it's all set up and ready to be cloud-based. So why do I need to have somebody right next to me? I don't anymore. Maybe if I was at a traditional type of company and I had to walk the file in still and turn it in and do all that, it would make sense. But we don't have to do that, right? So salaries, that's how to understand your salaries and also kind of start thinking about it is, again, if you're hitting 2 to 3 deals a month consistently, you need to be having that, start building your bench, if you will, of understanding what your team's gonna look like going forward, okay? And with that, I kind of went through it a little bit the other day, but the biggest thing is understanding who drives your money. So, not a trick question, who's responsible for bringing in money in your company?
Me.
You, right? So you're the one responsible for it. So you've got, in any business, I don't care who you are, we talked about it a little bit the other day, but you've got two sides. You've got sales, and then you've got operations, right? In every case, who is generally bringing in the money? It's the sales side, right? Sales is closing deals, right? And operations is managing workflows, right? Creating efficiencies, maybe increasing your profit margin by working on all that stuff. But sales, it's you over here, and in the beginning, it's you over here.
Yeah.
But then you get down to this level of, say, 2 to 3 deals a month, and it's you, and you need to start looking and getting this in place at least, a TC, right? That's gonna free you up. I recommend everybody to start out with a TC, honestly, just because it's such a low cost, and if you have the right setup, there's no risk in it. You pay at closing. And then we pass through that cost anyway on our agency agreements, right? So it's actually a profit center for us. We're charging between $395 and $595 per deal, and we're paying Kim $200 to $250 a deal, depending on if she writes it or not, right? So it's a profit center for us anyway. So the sooner you can put that in place, the better. And then next you're gonna get down to, let's say, 4 to 5 deals a month. And it's still just probably gonna be you, and then it's gonna be TC and marketing. And by marketing, even really a lot of that's just gonna be somebody making sure your database is really, really running right. It's clean, it's consistently hitting your sphere, the follow-up drip campaigns are going well to any of your inbound leads, like stuff's just not falling through the cracks.
Right.
And then maybe some social media management, stuff along that line. But even then, that doesn't necessarily need to be a full-time hire. It can be somebody doing 10, 15 hours a week. A lot of people, when they see these roles, they think, oh my God, I gotta hire and pay this, and it's gonna be, no, TCs, one-offs. You can do TC on one deal, not the next. I mean, whatever you want there, which is great. And on the marketing piece, you can find somebody that's a professional, but for one reason or another is not wanting full-time gigs right now, right? Or they're freelance in general, and they're doing 3 or 4 people stuff. But this is a great way, like, looking around there's where we've tapped into this in the past a lot, not to sound sexist, I don't mean this, but we found a lot of moms who left the career force, right, the workforce.
Yeah.
They just want to work a few hours a day while their kids are in school. They've got that time of 5 or 6 hours a day. They don't want to be required to be somewhere, right? So they can do that work, and they've got great background.
Mm-hmm.
And you can pay them, and they're just happy to be doing something consistently. So you do that 10 hours a week, $150, $200 a week, and you've got somebody part-time. If they're really good and they grow your business, you can talk then about, depending on your vision too, you can talk about, well, here's my vision, here's where I'm going, here's where we're at today, 4 or 5 deals. I'd really like to get to 10 deals a month. If and when that happens, obviously I've got to shift from part-time help to more full-time help. What does your roadmap for your life look like, Natalie? Is this an opportunity that you are hoping for someday growth, but you don't need it today?
Right.
Is this something maybe we grow in together? If not, understand at some point if we hit there, we may need to pivot. Whether it's me making a full-time hire or you growing into it, right?
Right.
But you can start having those conversations too and kind of building your bench, and knowing where your future looks, and always having conversations with people. Like one of the lady that I took over her Florida team for and became CEO of this massive team, I had met her probably 4 years before, right? And for both of us, it wasn't the right time.
Right.
And we just stayed in touch. So I was part of her bench, right? Every 6 months or so, she'd reach out to me. How you doing? Where you at? What's going on? What's the latest, right? And she just stayed in a relationship with me. She wasn't ready to hand over the reins either yet. She was still very active. But when she had different opportunities come up, boom, we had a more serious talk. 3 months later, I'm living down there, right?
Well, and I'm the bench right now.
Mm-hmm.
And doing my own thing, and I am not going to be the bench forever.
Yeah.
But now that's valuable to me because I have so much I'm learning from some really great people because I am their bench.
Yeah.
And it's literally, I mean, I don't even know how to put a dollar figure on the value of that, in addition to the fact that I'm making it some dollars.
Yeah. Well,
So-
again, you're earning while you learn,
Yeah.
right? And I think that's a super powerful thing to do. And you're seeing somebody that's generating a lot of leads. How do they handle leads? How do they handle the phone calls? How do they stay up with things like that? Are they doing a good job with their database or not? You can learn from good and bad when you're doing
Yeah.
that stuff, right?
And different, they're so totally different.
Yeah, and styles of business, where are the leads coming from, all these different things, and you get to see snippets. So I think it's cool that you're having that opportunity.
Yeah.
But you're even gonna wanna kind of start thinking about, as you're doing your business planning, and we're getting ready to do the full-on, like, full-day business planning clinic here in the next, probably November.
Oh, cool.
And it'll be like a full day, like breakfast and lunch. It'll probably be 5 hours, because we'll work through all of this really deep, but also your vision really deep, like where you're going, where your leads are, how you're getting the leads, money spent, and then your clear. Like, ties a lot of things we've talked about in general and little classes into one full workshop. So 2026 is all mapped out.
Okay.
But as you're doing that, you can start to look at this, because honestly, I look at it like a number of deals. Some people look at it as income based when you make these decisions. But for me, I found it's more about the number of deals, because the deals are what takes the time.
Yeah.
You know, some people sell $1 million houses all day. They do 10 and no big deal. It's just them, right?
And I think doing it your way doesn't put like an importance level on it, because there's a value, like a number, you know? Like, this house is only $250 compared to this $350 house. Like, we're gonna be doing this $350 house, no, you just need 5 deals. It doesn't matter, get both of them, you know?
Yeah, that's a great point. I've probably told the story to you guys, but when we first moved back here and we're building our team, this great, very energetic, very sharply put together young lady came into our office. She's maybe a month or two in the business. She said, "Number one, can I shadow you?" Sure, you know, I'll go on an appointment if you're available. I mean, I'm not gonna chase you down, but if you're here and I'm going, I hop in the car, right? But because she wasn't on our team. But then number two, she said, "I want to do some open houses of yours." I said, "Oh, that'd be cool. Yeah, we've got some opportunities." Just, okay, well, here's the deal. I want these neighborhoods. I want this price point. I want this. I want that. I'm like, you haven't earned that right, lady. Like, after that, I quit talking to her altogether. I'm like, that's just the wrong mindset. Like, you should just want to learn and grow. And we've found that when you start to track your referral tree and really pay attention to your business, some of our best long-term, like what I call lifetime client value, your LCV, like how much is that one person ultimately worth to you and your family? If you track the referrals, man, I think we figured out our average was like $100,000 per person that we do a deal with, if we're good at staying really in touch with them, because they refer their cousin. That person then refers their niece. That person then refers a coworker, right? And if you really track it all back to that top level, where it started, it's amazing. So I don't care if it was a $50,000 investor deal that was falling down, or they just needed their first house, or they're buying some land. It's amazing when you pay attention. You just help everybody, right? And because it feeds itself. So we'll help with anybody.
I think that's our personalities too. Like, her and I both would be the same. Like, oh, you need something? Let me help.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're helping Kathy try to source a $40,000 deal right now, and it's taking hours of everybody's time, right? But that's what we do.
Yes.
That's what we do, and hopefully we'll find something.
Well, that's a hard thing, and with something like that, it is a fully hard thing, because it's not a money thing. Not really. This is something that you know, you do out of relational personality, and because I'm not making any money, she's not making. I mean, nobody's making any money on that, you know.
Nobody is. At this point, everybody's probably is losing money on that that side. Now it's the other, but again, it's the third deal with this young lady, right? So over time, it's still added up. It's just, man, you know.
And she could refer a person and be like, yeah, those two absolutely went to war with me. And I would refer anybody.
Well, and sometimes it's just about feeling good. I had my one clear over on the other side of the state that I wanted to help this lady so bad, and it was just this situation, and then she couldn't, and I hated that it ended up being that she just couldn't, and it wasn't anything we did or didn't do. It just couldn't, and again, wasn't gonna make any money, but this lady deserved to have a house to live in.
Well, and again, some of those become your most loyal people ever, like you said, that you're in the trenches with, and they'll tell everybody in the universe why they need to use you. So stick with all that idea. So we went kind of off tangent a little bit on that piece of it. No, you're good. will you do me a favor? Click it and then pen 0410. Cool, thank you. So
It's G's
salaries,
birthday,
huh?
It's G's birthday.
Yeah, it is his birthday. So, okay, so then next within all of that, benefits and processing, you're not really there unless you're setting up your own payroll. That's where you could put stuff here. Like we do pay ourselves payroll through, we use Gusto right now, an online platform. There's a lot of different ones, or your CPA may do it or whatever, but we run stuff through Gusto right now and do all that. We're talking about setting up 401k through there, just different add-ons, benefits through there, but that's where you would have that stuff. Contract labor, this is again, this can be where you have your TC. This is where if you have somebody do logo design work, anything like that, and you're paying them a fee, one-off type stuff for contract labor goes in there. And so you've got your total salaries. Again, it doesn't say it over here. I need to add the line item in here just for a kind of a measurement kind of perspective, know where you're at, about 12%, okay? If you're spending way more than that, you're out of line on what you're spending on salaries.
Your contract labor, that wouldn't be the fee for the transaction coordinator?
It could go there as well. Yeah, because if you're paying just kind of the one-offs and you're not paying a true salary, you could put contract labor, you could put it there, absolutely. Also, because you're not paying on the contract labor with something like that, you're not paying payroll tax, right? You're not paying some of the things you have to actually pay in a salaried person,
Oh,
right?
yeah, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
In theory, that could be any 1099 person that you have. TC, even if you're paying somebody part-time just to help you, if you're not paying them a true wage and doing withholdings, everything could filter in there as contract labor. I do like seeing it broken out a little bit though, so I know where I'm spending it, right? Admin, management, things like that. But again, that's down the road.
So that's administration?
Yeah, it can go there, or like you said, contract labor for the TC is fine. Lead gen, here's some of the things you were talking about earlier on the expense side of it. What am I spending in advertising, print, direct mail, internet lead generation, entertainment? So like if you do client parties, like we just did a housewarming party for a young man, right? That could go in there. And I would probably line item just a few more because of the way we run our business. So that as long as my main category down here was all filtering into it. But if we do housewarming, we don't do this, but like if you do a property boost, it would go in there, right? Through your Bold Trail. You can spend like $179 and get 2 weeks property boost on the listing via internet lead gen. If you're doing mailers, obviously right there, or newsletters, anything along that line, radio, TV advertising, billboard advertising, stuff along that line. I would probably, as me, because of internet lead gen, think about having subcategories here too, to really understand that, like, what am I spending on Facebook Facebook impressions versus long tail Google search, right? Pay-per-click Google. And so I know, because then I can see, well, okay, I spent 2% here and 3% there. And if I'm tracking my lead source, wow, Google got me nothing this year, but I spent $4 grand on it. It's out. I exit out.
How often do you update this, and how do you keep track of what you updated or what you haven't? Like going into the sheet, like can you see the updates, like when it was done, or?
Yeah, you can. So because I'm not the best in the world on, you can either have tabs. So I've seen a lot of people that do it as tabs. They'll copy this and have a January tab. In a perfect world, you're analyzing and looking at it every 30 days, okay? So you're saying, okay, boom, here's what I did this month, and then you'll have an end of year kind of sheet at the end. But I would do that. The way I have done it, honestly, in the past, is I do just a copy of this and I call it January 25 or whatever. Does that make sense? Yeah. And then I've got a main folder in my Google Drive that has 2025 INE, right?
My personal finances, I do it by the year, but it's different.
But are you doing different tabs, or are you doing? Okay.
But I do it by year. This I would do a different tab by month. So like I would have all of 2024 in one spreadsheet.
And that'd be great, because then your end of year report just is pulling formulas.
Yeah.
Right, and it's just all syncs really nice. So I've got to learn a little bit more about that, honestly, on how to set that up. But every month you should be kind of taking a look at this and seeing where you're at. What went out the door, what came in the door.
Well, and what do you need to do, and what do you need to not do anymore?
That's the big thing. And some of them you also need to go into with the understanding of they have a different return time.
Yeah.
but understanding where it is, am I giving my direct mail time, right? And did I budget time? So farming, early on, I did some farming. I made the mistake. I'd run it maybe 2 or 3 months, and if I didn't get a lead out of it, I pulled it. I didn't know any different. Nobody told me.
Right.
And I might have spent $2,000 on mailing these neighborhoods and stopped just short of starting to get brain share in that neighborhood, right? If I would have stuck with it. I tell everybody stick with budget and stick with at least 6 months of direct mail.
How do you do your direct mail?
Huh?
How do you do your direct mail?
So, for farming, we use Every Door Direct through the U.S. Postal Service. I'll teach a class on farming specifically, but we do it through that, and then we use a group called Got Print, is where we have them do but we've already done the artwork. So a lot of our artwork is going through Fiverr. We hire freelancers on Fiverr to design it. We just do 2 or 3 messages. We don't get too particular with it. Those rotate. They just repeat, right? Because people don't remember 60 days later what they got 60 days ago. So the messaging is just get a good call to action. Doesn't have to be too amazing. It's just the consistency of showing up every 30 days in their box. So do that. Use Got Print. Got Print will handle the Every Door Direct for you, or they'll send you in bulk and you can go drop it off and do what you want.
And there's different services that cost different amounts of money that can do all of that stuff. Like, you just tell them what you want and they can, I mean, for every level. I mean,
Well,
you
luckily
can,
for me, I have a lot of templates, like with the luxury EXP thing, you don't have to make anything, you just have to put your information
oh
in
yeah,
there.
the
and that's
Canva,
it.
all the Canva stuff, yeah.
Yeah, you do that. If you do that and you've got the artwork and you upload it to Got Print and you're doing any significant number of pieces, like say 1,000 or more a month on pieces, their printing is like 4.5 cents a card, double-sided, like it's super cheap. And then you're throwing in Every Door Direct for like 20 cents. So for a quarter, you're hitting a household. Your return, what's interesting on farming, if you do the right homework on the farm, and you understand turnover rate, market domination, and saturation, some stats will go into another day. But if you understand and you really pick a farm logically from a business perspective, your conversion on it's about 4% return. So if you're hitting 1,000 homes, you should expect about 4 deals a year out of that farm after your mailing seasons. Okay, so after about 120, 150 days, you might get somebody to raise their hand from day one. But budget 6 months in your head, right? Track what kind of calls you're getting, track your call to actions. Is there one working better than another on the postcard? And budget that. So for $25, $250 a month, that's $3,000 a year to get 4 deals out of a neighborhood. And you can build from that. 4 deals again is gonna be
For more people
roughly
that can refer you.
$30,000 just from those 4 deals. That's a 10-to-1 return, right? 10-to-1 return.
Yeah.
If you can everybody should be really, so when it comes to lead gen, there's kind of 2 numbers I look at on lead generation when trying to make a decision, and that is the 10% and 20% metric, okay? So if you are kind of stabilized in managing your business and not really in a crazy growth phase, about 10% is what you should spend on lead gen, okay? If you have the money. If not, you trade time, right? Like I've talked about all the time, you trade your time or trade your money. If you don't have money, you prospect like crazy, you do a bunch of open houses, you do all that. Once you start getting money, you reinvest in things that are bringing leads to you through marketing, right? To do that and be on a steady or kind of steady pattern of return or decent kind of moderate growth, 10% is the rule of thumb. So for every $1 you spend, you should get 10 back on that, okay? So if you're making 100 grand, plan on about 10 grand in advertising. 200 grand, 20 grand, right? It's kind of that. If you go into a heavy growth phase, like maybe you're adding on a few farms, or you're adding on a massive internet lead gen campaign, or something along that line, or you're doing a big radio blitz to start working on things, 20% is more of a rule of thumb. So, but if you're going more than 20%, if you're spending more than 20% at all, you're out of line. Like you're not holding your money accountable. Does that make sense? So it shouldn't be over 20.
There's probably something else going on if you're using more than 10% of your budget.
Absolutely. And so like a lot of guys I've coached in the past, just because of my personality, they've been prospectors, then they start reinvesting in their business a little bit, but the way they reinvest is they are hiring another prospector. So that's going into salaries, right? So it's an expense to drive their business, but it's not advertising. Their advertising may never get more than 4 or 5%, because they're not driving it through mailers and TV and radio. They're driving it through just pounding the phones all day, right?
So if you had a person who was literally just a communicator, just a good relational talk to people person, like let's say they're not even an agent.
Yeah.
Like an assistant.
You could have them as an assistant and literally just have them be your relational, like.
Yeah, I would put that kind of under the marketing department, right? So database manager. The best anecdote I can personally give you is in my Florida team is we had a person that we called our customer experience manager.
Yeah.
And their job was to touch our database, reach out to it consistently, make those 90-day phone calls. How are they doing? Anything we can help with? They also just did the warm fuzzies through the transaction. Hey, how's it going? Anything like they just really managed the experience of the customer. They invited to our events, right? They just had a great warm personality. But at the same time, they were good at following the checklist. So they had that blend of being able to be task oriented, but still be very just warm and friendly. Mm-hmm. And that was a great role, and that was a salaried position. Mm-hmm. We paid, so that was a bigger team. We did about $1.5 million in revenue with that team. And so we did base salaries plus profit share. So, which is another thing people sometimes get into. They either bonus or they profit share, but they can keep their fixed expenses relatively low. And that's honestly the way I've done every role I've ever taken. I've said, don't pay me very much. I want a piece of the back end. If I drive this business, I want a bigger piece on the back, right? If you have people that get that understanding, that have a little skin in the game, it's hard to find an administrator with that personality because they tend to like stability and predictability, so they want that good wage. But if I can give you a living wage and show you an upside based on increased profit, then it's a win for everybody, right? So that's what we did with her. Was her base was probably 30, 35. She worked full time, but I bet you at the end of the year she made 55 or 60. I would have, man, that time's out really quick. Sorry.
It's okay, we now know when we need
I need to
buy
scroll.
a present.
What is it?
0410. Go ahead if you need to. Do we want to take a break real quick?
Yeah.
Okay. We'll take a break. So because you have other business experience, you're probably doing just fine with this conversation today. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm also like, so, I mean, I'm a full-time tattoo artist. It is like a roller coaster financially, so I am extremely like spreadsheet and like organized and just that type of person when it comes to finances, because I have to be, like I have to see where my money is, what it's doing, like how much is going out, because I am producing my income from a business. Like,
Yeah.
I personally don't make $120 an hour, my business does.
Right.
You know, so.
Yeah, and understanding what it costs you to drive that revenue and everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think this stuff will come really natural for you. What's really good with all of this is it's real estate specific, and then we have, I mean, on a granular level, I've got percentages for every single line item, like best practices. So as you start getting clarity as your business grows, you're like, oh, okay, like I'm 5% over on this one. Why? Yeah. Is it just because I'm growing into it, or do I need to really analyze where I'm spending and cut back on some things?
Yeah, I'm excited to have access to the spreadsheet, because unfortunately it was a class. I had to take an entire class in college for just formatting this BS, but I'm so glad for it now, so glad. But it was a stupid class. But I'm gonna make the percentages of that stuff convert into a pie chart, because I don't know, visuals just make a lot of sense for me. But
yeah, that'd be great. That'd be great. Yeah, I love that. Maybe we can work on that together and we can share that with everybody, because I think a lot of people are visual on it, and if they can see the pie chart, they'd love that.
Yeah, and like if you have different goals, like my goal is going to be a completely different goal from say Natalie's goal, and my pie chart is going to look different, and it's going to change over time. You know.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so.
Yes, and I think a good tab that we should add to this is what we finish in the business planning clinic is your goals. Mm-hmm. That fill out the top of your 411, right? But have it automatically populated, like bar graph of actual versus results and where you're at. That would be nice.
Yeah, because like everybody is essentially a real estate agent, but like what direction are you going? Mm-hmm. Not everybody's going the same way.
Yeah, you know, I think we do a pretty fair job of talking about that, and the fact that we're not here to tell you gotta make $1 million a year, right? I mean, a lot of people just wanna supplement and make a little extra money, and that's cool. It still is good to know, are you actually being profitable doing it though? Are you spending more than you're making? And some people are. So we gotta get better understanding of that. So, you okay? Okay, I'm gonna keep going. You ready for me to keep
I'm
going?
just listening to this message real quick.
Okay, I'll wait.
No, don't.
So, lead gen, same thing, 10%, it's kind of the rule of thumb, unless like we talked about, you're heavy prospecting, that may be a little lower, but you may consider reinvesting that. We're up to 20% in a heavy growth phase, while you're trying to take on some new market share. Occupancy, are you paying any rent, utilities, all that stuff? Did you buy any, do you have any capital improvements or equipment that you're depreciating, stuff along that line? That'll go under occupancy. That's only a couple percent of your total income, should be 2 to 3%. That's about it. This is where you get to write off all your good fun stuff, all your website fees, your tech stack, your cell phone, everything along that line. Any apps, like you're talking about, that tracking app you use for mileage, that can go in here for all of that stuff with all the technology pieces. What about your education? What are you spending on CE? Are you going into any events? Do you have a coach or consultant? Are you buying any books? Anything along that line for real estate? And this is what we talked about with automobiles. So there's a whole separate line items. If you're doing actual expenses versus mileage. If not, you're just gonna have your mileage up here, right? And that's gonna be your one category. If you're tracking all the others, you're gonna track it all right through there. So, and break it all down, and you'll have a total there. Did you buy anything, or are you renting anything for your office space? Like we used to rent cubicles, so we didn't want to pay up front for a lot of them when I had the big brick and mortar. So we started out kind of like a rent to own. So that went in here, the copiers, anything you buy, printers, all those things a lot of people don't think about. Some of them, depending on how much they cost, and you're working with a bookkeeper, some of them you just deduct immediately. Some of them, if they're bigger ticket, they have to technically be depreciated over 5 years or 3 years or something like that. Most of us aren't ever going to get hit with that as a concern, but my disclaimer is, right, it could be. If you get audited, they may say, well, you can't write that whole, you just bought a $5,000 copier, you can't write that off all at once. You got to take $1,000 a year or whatever.
So that's an ask your accountant thing.
That's an ask your accountant if you've
And
had
it's
some
to
big
do with your
investments.
accountant too, like once you find one, if you need one, I can give you her number. She's
Oh,
amazing.
yeah, I've got to
But,
do that.
like anytime you need anything, just call them and ask them. But my accountant gave me this paper if you wanna look at it later, but
Yeah.
it basically is all those write-offs. The only thing that's a tricky thing is food.
Yeah.
Like the events, do you have a section in your thing for like event food and like personal food or anything like that?
So in a way, yeah, we've got, let's see where I've got it.
Cause there's a lot of expenses and fees and all that stuff.
I think I have that earlier on with,
Marketing maybe or something.
yeah, I think I had it with the marketing and advertising.
Cause isn't that part of that category? Like it's an expense your business.
Entertainment others. So my stuff generally goes under meals and entertainment. When I'm giving stuff to my accountant, and then a percentage of that gets qualified, not the
So,
whole thing.
Meals and entertainment, that would be for like meetings and open houses,
Mhm.
all that, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Perfect.
What about like, weekly, it's probably an accountant question, but weekly with our weekly, Navy meetings?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
I
you
buy
can
lunch
expense
for
that.
Is that
Yeah.
the full
If
expense?
it's at a,
No, it's 50.
if it's at a meeting,
Yeah.
it's, are you sure? Because it's 50% if it's not at a meeting.
My understanding is it's still only 50 because they fit, the way they look at it is you have to eat anyway as a human being.
Yeah.
So that if you're actually eating that particular ticket or that item, it's half, because they're like, we're not gonna give you everything. You can't just say you're eating all the time and just write it all off. Because you're gonna have to
Write off all
eat,
of your
right?
nutrition.
So, at least that's where I've been taught. Now, if I'm buying food and providing it at an event,
Yeah.
that's a little different because that's an event food.
But still, like, for example, if you, and you guys do it all the time, if you guys purchased, that fur basket that we had the other day, or
Mhm.
that cake, like that's for this meeting,
Mhm.
that is for an event.
Yes.
So that is a write-off.
Right.
That is a write-off.
Completely, yes.
Yeah,
Okay,
that is a
perfect.
write-off. Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely. If I'm ingesting it, it's not a full write-off. If I'm providing it, like again,
others.
like that housewarming thing, we bought a bunch of meat, cooked it up, right? So that was a sign the receipt.
Send it to
Get it
me,
done.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So good questions. So communication, we already hit all that piece right there, right? Education, we just talked about. Your networking Navy dues, right, as part of your advertising can go into advertising as well. Your education, your automobile stuff here, again, the bigger you get, the fancier you can get with some of these expenses. Equipment, are you renting anything, any repair on it? Supplies, a lot of people don't think about little things like banking charges, right? I mean, if you're getting charged $10 a month for online banking or whatever, or because you want print copies of it, that's a banking charge, put it in there. Office supplies, consumables, meaning not like, this is not where you put your new laptop, right? That goes underneath tech, okay, or equipment.
I just bought a new laptop, so
This
now I
would
know.
be, this would be like your paper, pencils, all that stuff, pens. Then insurance, what are you paying on insurance? If it's specifically, again, this is where I'd ask your accountant about your automobile insurance. Do you have it underneath your business? Is there a portion of it that's deductible because you're driving clients around? Are you driving clients around? If you are driving them around, do you have the right coverage? A lot of people are underinsured if they've got clients in their car. So make sure you've got enough coverage for that. Your E&O insurance, right? Now, again, we aren't seeing that, so you probably won't need to track that. That's one of those off the top things. But if you really want to know, just up there in the beginning of splits, you could add broker review fee, right? You could add that stuff like that.
Oh, is that what is that E&O? Is that what the
There's
review
two
fee is?
things. There's a broker review fee and an E&O fee. Broker review is $25, E&O is $40. They have $40 per deal.
Every transaction?
No, so E&O caps, I forget the dollar, it's like $600 a year or something like that.
Oh, okay.
And then it's capped, which is a lot cheaper than if you got it on your own. Like when I was broker owner of my own, just mom and pop, it was like $1,800 a year. That was forever ago.
It's
That
almost
was,
like EXP wants us to succeed.
yeah, it's cheap. And it's pay as you go, right? Some
Well,
companies
they're bulk-
Some companies will
bulk
charge you
purchasing.
up front even
Yeah.
for that. They'll charge you $500 a year, right? Or they'll charge you a flat $50 a month, whether you've sold anything or not.
Right.
At least here it's pay as you go.
Yeah.
If you don't do it, because they figure if you're not doing it, you're not gonna get, there's nothing to sue you over, right?
Right,
So
right.
you get paid on
And if
that.
you're capping all the time, you probably know what you're doing.
Yes, you would hope you get to know what you're doing.
Just-
And I'd say sometimes people just sue, right? That's the unfortunate part of this business, of any business, really. So there's your insurance that you're gonna have right there, anything you're covering on that. Like Sharon can add things just for this space, right? That she would be able to put into here for having this space for us. Professional services, your accounting, tax prep, legal, other professional stuff, total, and then other expenses, charitable contribution, interest payments, office transaction fees paid, but again, this would be after you've already gotten your check, right?
After the splits.
Most of the stuff you won't see that, right? Because you're paying it indirectly as your splits. So you're not probably gonna have anything here, okay? Because again, it's gonna go into, if you have a TC, it's gonna go either into salaries or contract labor, okay? This would be if you worked somewhere, they paid your check and then they deducted out of that check, they paid it, but they deducted it out. Some companies do that. And you may see, oh, they charged me $195 per deal, but they paid me first, and then I got this funny 1099. It's, so that can sometimes happen. And then any taxes that you have through that line that come out, we don't really have to deal with that much here, okay? So total expenses and then business profit. But here's an interesting thing that can happen. It's called below the line. So this tells you what your business made. Okay, so this is all about your business, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's you, okay? So, because as you get bigger, this may all be running in an LLC, right? And then through that, you as the owner of the LLC can sometimes do discretionary things that you give to the business or you don't give to the business, okay? That are coming in different. So you may have interest-bearing accounts that are in your name, right? That come to you. You may have vendor supplier income, meaning you may charge Luke Dawson money to be here every month, right? You may charge a home inspector to be advertising in your newsletter or to be on your website. You can have your vendor income here, profit share income, your revenue share income, right, can go in here. Again, to know your numbers, kind of put it in together. Or you can run that separately. Now EXP allows you to pay that separately if you want to run it as two different businesses. but you may not be there, right? It may just all run into one, and any other income you have just coming in. So that shows then your total below the line income, and then other below the line expenses, okay? So if you get to the point where you're doing, I wouldn't even say bonus, I would say profit share, because you've got to know what is your profit before you share profits. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Bonus is usually off the top, right? Hey, you're getting this deal, we made this amount, you're getting X%. It's kind of the easy way on. The way we did bonuses for a long time was we did it based on transaction count. So we said, we're at this level right now. If you help us get to this level, we start bonusing per file, right? So if it's our transaction coordinator, we gave an extra $50 a file over 8 deals a month, right? If it was our buyer's agent and they did 3 deals a month was the benchmark. If they did 5, they got a little bump in the split that month, right? So they, instead of getting 40%, maybe they get 45 or whatever. Does that make sense? If they hit that baseline that month. But profit share is something that's really, from a big business perspective, something that I think is worth thinking about if you're thinking big. It's a great way to kind of create retention and tie people in long term, and also reward based on not only productivity but also on loyalty. So a very common way that this is done is you're given, let's say, a certain amount of points, and let's say the not to just really, we're going deep today because I just figure you guys are going to be rock stars, right?
No, I love this.
So, but this is really, again, this is the idea of turning this into a business with unlimited opportunity. So another way you can do it is you can have a point system, and you can have a total percentage of share. So you as the owner may say, well, Glenn Sanford, I'm not going to go with his, but he says 50% of company dollar goes out. But you would say the same kind of idea. You would say, I want maybe 10% of my profit to be allocated to profit share. And that may represent a certain number of points in your mind. It may represent 100,000 points. And then you create a point system. So you get, for every year they've been with you equals X number of points. Okay, like 100 points. And then every dollar of salary equals 1 point. Right? So you add up these points. So if they've been with you 10 years, that equals 1,000 points, right? 10 times 100. And if they get 30,000 a year salary, that's 30,000 points. So they've got 31,000 total points. And then if you got employee B, right, and he's 5 years, and he's at 50,000, he's getting whatever. He's getting 500 plus the 50, right? 50,500. So you start to figure out what percentage do they have of the overall. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So if you made 500,000 in profit, and you've got, that would be times 10% allocated, that's 50,000 possible that can go back out. They've got 31% of that. You're looking at 15,500 in their profit share on top of their salary. So they would get 30,000. At the end of the year, you give them another 15,500 as profit share, so they're making 45,000. Okay, this one's getting 50,000. You know, so that'd be the same thing. 50 plus their percentage of that would be another 50% of that, so 25,000. So they'd be at 50,000 base for employee B plus 50% of 50,000, which equals 25. So that person would get 75K. Okay, but there's an actual formula. I'm kind of whipping that out of the top of my head, right? But that's the theory behind it. Because if somebody's been with you for 10 or 15 years, they should get a bump, even if they're maybe administrative, right? Whereas you may have a listing agent on your team who's amazing. A lot of listing agents get paid base. They don't get paid a percentage because you've got, at that point, usually when you outsource your listing business, you're so big that you can't even take all your own listings. And so you've got a real good opportunity. You pay them a base of 70 or 100,000 a year or something like that. and then they'll get a bonus, or they'll get a profit share or something along that line. But if they've been with you and there's been an administrator who's been with you for 15 years, for crying out loud, they should get a pretty good bonus too, right? Because they've kept your operation stable. You've been able to build on their back a lot of your business and set up your people going forward. But the profit share thing is we did have that by the time I left the Florida group, is because we had several admin who'd been there 6, 7, 8 years, and they deserved to have a piece of it. And we found that when we got them to understand buying into the vision, the conversations became less about, I need a raise this year, as much as then the conversations became, well, here as a team, here's our goals. Right? So let's do what's it going to take for us to go from doing 30 million a year to 40 million a year or whatever, to do an extra 50 deals a year. What's that got to look like operation wise, build out? Can you handle the load, or do we need to hire somebody else? Which, if we hire somebody else, can impact your back end, right? So can you pick it up? Can you bump this up or whatever? And as a team, those decisions get made because everybody's on the same side of the ledger at the end of the year, and it can create wonderful buy-in. Right.
Well, and like you said, loyalty.
Yeah, and I mean, and as long as you're hitting those goals or you're progressing toward them, it's nice because come January, they're getting a big fatty check, you know? Now, some of them didn't really like that. They didn't like waiting all year for the bonus or whatever. I've seen other teams that have run profit share more like semi-annually or whatever, like quarterly or twice a year. The downside is if there's a market turn all of a sudden, that's happened, I lived through 2 of them. If it happens all of a sudden, then as a team owner, you can get caught with your pants down, right? Like, oh my gosh, I bonused 50 grand and now all of a sudden the market's just dead and you're still got this overhead, right? And so there's kind of that caveat to it. So an annual bonus is an easy way to do it. If you're good at managing and understanding, I need to be setting aside the bonus. I need not be going out and buying a new truck just because I got this fat check this month. 10% of that I said is going to be allocated. Now, whatever's not allocated in a point system doesn't get paid out. You don't pay all of that out.
Right.
If it's not used up, that just goes back to the owner for taking the risk. Does that make sense? So you structure that properly. But I think that's really the big things I wanted to kind of hit on, is that when you look at all of this, there is a way to take this and completely manage it and run it as a full-on business. It does not need to be a sales job, right? There's no reason you can't take this and turn it out. Now, again, if it's just you in the beginning, you're going to just track those main categories: income, expense, cost of sale, and profit. That's it. But if you have the wherewithal, start practicing some of this. Look at importing it into QuickBooks or Wave or whatever, or share it with your accountant, get their feedback on it. But in a lot of cases, their categories, their main line items are going to mirror these, like salaries. They won't have to necessarily break down these on the schedule, right, that they fill out, but this will go in there, salaries that you paid out.
Has anybody made one industry specific accounting?
Software?
Yeah.
Well, this is made to, I've got the one that imports into QuickBooks.
Oh, okay. So
yeah, so this is just the spreadsheet. So you could import this version into QuickBooks with all the line items already.
Okay.
So as you've got an expense coming in, you could just tag it to that, to that field. I don't know about let's say with Wave, a lot of people started shifting over to Wave because it's free up to a certain amount of transactions or money or something, I don't remember right, but it can be used really affordably. I'm assuming they can probably take a CSV file.
Oh yeah, okay, so
Yeah, and just import the line items for you. And then again, when we get there, I don't have the percentages laid out next to it, I'll add all of that, but all these have these benchmarks. So it'd be very easy for you to run, if you're doing something like a QuickBooks, run your month-end report and see where am I standing in all these things, right? So you're either entering it in here manually and doing it, or if you've got it integrated, then you can just look at your month-end, run your month-end report and be like, oh yeah, I spent 10% on salaries, I'm good. I'm not over, I'm doing fine, or whatever it might be. But yep, that's our dollar cost allocating that we
Okay.
talked about with real estate and the fun part of math.
I hate math.
Math
But
and
this
money.
is good because I haven't seen it, I don't have like a college class on this or something, you know what I mean? So this is worth a lot of money to learn.
Well, most of us don't. Most of us don't, and we've had plenty of conversations with people that I think our youth are having a disservice done by not really being taught financial literacy in school, like really understanding the time value of money, opportunity cost, all these different things. They're taught to go work for somebody, and that's fine, but even then, you've got household management expenses, reinvesting, retirement, all these things to understand, and they just don't. They don't have financial literacy. I learned all this stuff the hard way, honestly. I mean, I had a coach try and teach it to me for a long time, and I didn't even learn it then. I didn't learn it until I opened my first franchise, and I had to report this every single month. And I'm like, oh, wow, okay.
Yeah.
This is pretty intense, right? But then you have massive clarity, and you can look as you start to understand your reports, and I'm sure you're this way with your other business now. As you look at your report, at a glance, you get to the point where you're like, oh, like I'm off here, or hey, I'm trending good, right? And you can just see really, really fast where things are off. And it gives you that chance, especially if you're doing it every 30 days, it gives you that chance to pivot quicker and not rack up something you shouldn't be racking up.
Well, like you said, this isn't emotional, this is factual. You just, it's not how you feel about it, it's whether it's actually working.
Yeah. We don't talk about we don't talk about money for the sake of money. You guys know that. We never talk about money for the sake of money. We talk about money for what it can do for your family, what it is as a tool. What money shows up on here while we talk about it so much, not because I want to be greedy and just drive all this money and bribe it, and some people are, that's cool, but that's not our way of thinking about it. But as this is my scorecard, it's my report card on my business, right? It's like if you're going to school, you get A's, B's, C's, D's. Where am I at? And if you don't know how to measure your progress. That's it. And it's just a tool to measure where you're at, how you're growing, and then also how to make better decisions about, okay, I've got X amount left over that now if I reallocate here, because I'm only spending 5% on lead gen, what if I spent 10 on lead gen because I've got it? I mean, I've got the money to do it, and then I hold that accountable. Can I make an extra $40,000 or $50,000 this year if I spend an extra 10, right? And it allows you to really start planning better too by knowing this. So that's it. That's the good stuff. That's your down and dirty today. Okay.
Thank you.
So hopefully I didn't blow your brains up too much today with too much mathing. But
No, because we didn't do actual math, so.
yeah, and you'll just go in again. Most of it's once you start plugging it in, it calculates it automatically. I've got a few more things to add
Yeah,
there.
I do that
But that's it.
with my
I'll
personal
upload this.
finances.
I'll upload this to the sheet today, to the group, so you guys have access to download that. You can take this title that I've got up here. You should be able to take that title. If for some reason this won't import into your accounting software easily, I've found it just by Googling it, like the QuickBooks friendly version, right, and pull it in. So it's out there already in some form or another, but the same kind of headers. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you stay on the same page.